Welcome to the Diversity Connector podcast, where we explore the rich tapestry of human experiences. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country on which we meet today. I would also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging, and together as we dive into conversations that bridge cultures, challenge stereotypes, and celebrate the unique perspectives each of us brings to the table. Each episode is a journey through stories and insights from a kaleidoscope of voices, each sharing their colorful narrative. Whether you're at home, on the go, or just anywhere in between, you're now part of a community that values understanding, inclusivity, and the beauty of diversity. So plug in your headphones, get comfortable, and let's connect through the power of our shared stories. Welcome, and thank you for joining us on the Diversity Connector podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Diversity Connector. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another amazing young woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Hello, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here and get the opportunity to share some of my story bits. And I'm really looking forward to connect with you afterwards, just leaving the message here that I'm also happy to hear your stories. My name is Burcu Arslan. I'm born and raised in Germany. But as you might guess, I also have a different cultural background. My parents are from Turkey, and moved over here in the 70s, as of like the German dream story goes. It was a time of opportunity, and my grandpa and my dad made the brave decision to leave their country, their loved ones, and come over here. And all my life, I was told the story that I'm the daughter of immigrants and I have limited opportunities, that my access to education, resources, networks is quite limited. But actually, what I saw at home was a very different story. I had a really loving mom who always made sure that we have a warm meal, that we are taken care of, that whatever we emotionally also need is given, and a dad that would go beyond and beyond all the time to make sure that we do get the education we want, and maybe the story he never had. So I come from a background and a household where my parents worked really hard all the time, were really brave, and tried their best to make sure that I can now sit here and talk even in English to you, which is such a privilege to me, because I do get the chance to connect to so many more people than I would have ever imagined to, which is such a big blessing. Going back to the stories I was told, always people would judge my parents always based on how good they, are in speaking German, and they were not fluent. They came over here when they were teenagers, and back at that time, they did not have the access to education I do have. And it was always a struggle for me growing up in between two worlds to realize, okay, the name I was given is Burcu. The stories that people tell me is that the story of a Burcu can only be limited to these versions. But that's not how I feel about it. That's not how I do see my own story. But how do I make the change? How do I go beyond? How do I actually make sure that my dream is not just a dream, but does become a reality? And there was a myth everyone would tell, that people are self-made, and if you work really hard, you can make it. And my story to me proves whatever I did, it was never self-made. I always had an incredible support system. I always had people I could go to, talk to. And even though maybe the parents I had were not the ones who could give me business advice, they were always the one who would, encourage me to be brave, to speak up for myself, to just be the version of me I would really want to be. And that really got me a long way. I finished high school and I had the passion to discover the world. I was like, okay, the stories I'm told are not the stories I want to live, but I really want to go somewhere where I could see what else is possible. And back at that time was like really watching whatever Hollywood was like producing. And I was like binge watching all the TV shows and everything. And I was like, wow, New York seems to be the place to be and go. So I decided after high school to kind of save my money, work part time, and make the change to go to New York. I did. I lived there as an au pair with a Jewish family, which was one of the most interesting years in my life. And I was just 18 back in that time. I had no idea what that adventure would even mean to me. But after living with that family for a year of like mutual respect and love and caring for one another also, and then going to many more adventures, I learned that the story within me is what matters the most. And the people around me will always notice if I'm honest with what I'm saying. And whenever I said with a smile on my face, I'm Burcu, people knew she's a kind girl, she's a helpful one, she's a supportive one, she's the ambitious one. No one really cared about the cultural background in a sense, as you know, I was afraid of, or people would kind of tell me that I should be really cautious of. But anyway, I had that mark on me that I would always have to over deliver. And I returned, I studied international management, and I even decided, I grew up in Europe. I had the chance to live in America for a year, but I feel like I'm missing a lot of the puzzle. There's so much more outside. So during my studies, I decided to go to South Korea for another year and studied there. And that gave me somehow a better full picture of the world. I realized that my story and reality is not the only truth out in this world. I learned to listen. I learned to just let be. And while I was trying to prove myself, I never expected anyone to prove them to me. So I noticed the inner voice and expectation I have towards myself is also not really fair. I'm so much nicer and kinder towards others when I listen to their stories, except to myself. So while I was in Asia, I actually really did learn what it means to accept yourself, be kinder to yourself, to talk to yourself in a softly voice. And that brought me back. I started working and gave me a really good foundation to actually be brave enough to speak up, but also like have the empathy it needs to kind of also just be silent when it's needed. So I really love to read the room, and I really love to also, if it's needed, to stand out. But what I really do see in Germany is that after living in different cultures, that we are a bit more hesitant, a bit more introverted, a bit more like in such a world where we are shaped by individualistic cultural traits, more focused on ourselves, in a sense that the idea of a community isn't that big, which was fascinating to me also in Asia. And my Turkish background is also like very much community driven. So with all these lessons learned, I came back to work, and I started to be the community driven person, the one who connects marketing to finance, the one who speaks the language of the people who do sales, but also the one who does know how to translate that knowledge to IT. And that became my sweet spot. Now I'm always someone who's more often like generalist, and someone who does try to connect not just, you know, people, but also ideas. Someone who wants to be the bridge between it, so that we can make sure that we can go further together. You know, there's that quote where it says, if you want to go far, go alone. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I really do believe that it is true. And I'm sure in some chapters in my life, I really wanted to go fast. But I noticed looking back that going together, being in a community, and driving change together is such a more sustainable way. And it does help each and every one so much more that it is worth it to sometimes tame your own ego and say, okay, we will slow down. We will find the speed that works with everyone. And just because I feel like I'm blessed enough to know what it means to be inclusive in such a sense, it does not mean that the reality of other people's also had all kinds of colors in their journey. We have to make sure that we get the people where they are, that we know what the status quo is, and then we move forward. That's what my parents, that's what my co-workers, that's what my friends also did with me. They always knew that there is the stage where I'm in, and to get there where they would also want me to be, they had to give me time. And today I feel like I got to a place which I really appreciate, which I really like, which I really enjoy. I'm really looking forward to whatever is coming next, because I really do believe that humanity has whatever it takes and needs to have a peaceful world within it. We just sometimes don't listen to that inner voice, and we just need like cute reminders to make sure that we don't forget how important it is to be in a community. And also Gertrude's TED Talks are just such a lovely way to reconnect with your inner voice and your community outside of you. So I would say that's basically my story. I'm someone who's curious, someone looking forward to connect and talk. And
What an honor to have you on the show today. Your energy, your zest jumps out of the screen. I feel really blessed that I found you through LinkedIn and that we're going to be having this conversation tonight. It sounds to me like your parents were visionaries who realized that just by translocating their family, it would make an impact on your lives. And it sounds like it has, correct?
absolutely it did, yeah. It's
So,
interesting because they did not have any kind of degrees or whatever the world right now measures as success. And based on, like yearly salaries, whatever, my parents were never in such a way successful that they would belong to the top 10% or anything. But we had such a happy household, but also one where we could be tense and discuss, and where we were also able to be angry at one another without like judging for one another or having less love. That
yes.
I got the sweet spot where I could express myself without fearing to kind of fall down out of the system. And that is just what I guess gives me now the calmness to be also here with you.
Love it. So let's talk about the integration of diversity in strategic growth. How do you integrate diversity in inclusive principles in your strategies for driving strategic growth in businesses?
So lesson learned one is for sure that we have to understand that there's a status quo, and we have to be realistic about it. Sometimes we really try to idealize the version the story is like, but most companies really have to do some homework. So we have to be honest about it and analyze the status quo. We have to do like questionnaires, talk to people, see what the structure is, and how operations actually do work. Once we do have that awareness, we can work with it. Most companies just look around and see, wow, they're doing such a campaign and they do that, and then they copy paste it, but it doesn't really match what they're doing. And then it doesn't really change anything in a sustainable manner, because they never really looked inside what's going on. So first and foremost, I would always say you really have to do your homework, in a sense that you have to have awareness on what's going on in a very honest manner. It can be brutal. It can really hurt. Especially in Germany, we have many family-owned mid-sized businesses. And these
Yes.
people gave like their lives into building their companies, and their passion, and might be second or third generation even. It's so much more than just business. And then it really hurts when people tell you they don't feel welcome in your place.
Yeah.
It's like when you have guests over and they say, it's not so nice here, I would want to leave. But that's the consequence most of the time what's happened. So when you have that, you can work with it. Then you need commitment and training. And commitment, people say, bottom up, top down. I think you need all of it.
Yeah.
To make a sustainable change, you do have to ensure that everyone got the message, and everyone does know that we are moving to a direction that is better for everyone. You have a lot of resistance towards change, especially in a time where so much is changing simultaneously, that it
Mm.
is important to train people on it. for me, for example, I grew up with 2 languages, 2 cultures. It's easier to kind of translate in between both worlds. So
Yeah.
the training I would have to get is a different training than someone who was just like living in a very homogeneous world. It doesn't
Yes.
mean that I'm better or worse than that person. It just means that we have very different needs in such a sense to get to the same spot.
Yeah.
And most of the time, unfortunately, the training sets we have is just like watching a few videos, having one day a year where they get like some sense of training, but it doesn't really help because it does not get the people where they are. And the last one would be to have actually policies with consequences. So it's
Mm.
nice to say, "Ooh, yeah, we are like good people, we do all that stuff and we are inclusive." But it is important to notice that this is not like just some philanthropy we do. It is important that this is a part of the way how we want to treat
Doing
one another, how we want to
business.
work. And then the consequences should be transparent to everyone so that you know what you get yourself into.
I like that. The consequences is a good one. So, as a leader, how do you foster an inclusive environment that encourages diversity within your teams?
I allow myself to be wrong. And I do not assume that my decisions would be the right ones. So whenever my team says something like they would want to do it differently or they have another stake on it, I do let it be. And I had a lot of leaders that always wanted to, do it their way. And
Yes.
I struggled with that a lot. And I did notice that sometimes it was the right way, but sometimes it wasn't. And before I come up with a decision on anything, I do make sure that everyone has the space to express themselves. And
Yeah.
sometimes I say, okay, that was really great to have that discussion, but we should go this way because I also have to wear, the accountability for whatever the outcome is in certain situations. So I think
Yes.
it's a balance between like communication and also self-awareness.
Okay. So, what are some of the most significant challenges that you faced in promoting diversity and inclusion within the business development, sales, and marketing?
In one of the former companies I worked for, we had like a very different average age. Like most of my coworkers were like way beyond 50, and I was one of the youngest. And I got the great task to introduce a new software and a new project. And of course, there was like insane resistance to change. And they were like, we did it like this for 20 years. You just came here last year. Why do you try to change everything? And that kind of situation. And I
Yeah.
did judge them. I was like, why don't they see the benefit in it? And I was like, why doesn't it work? And I was in a spot where I would just, get angry at them. I wouldn't ever raise my voice or anything. But inside of me, I noticed that I'm also not trying hard enough because I don't see the benefit in it myself.
Mm.
So then I had a change in my mindset, and I noticed that if I'm talking to them and I want them to use this software or change or whatever, and they, based on my age and based on my background, don't really want to listen to me, I have
Yes.
to make sure that my communication skills are like beyond great. And
Yeah.
I learned what they joke about. I learned what they watch. I learned like all that kind of crazy stuff I had nothing to do with because I'm not part of that generation. And after some time, we built relationships, and they were like eager to invest not just into the relationship, but also into the project. And later on, they said, Burcu, I was really afraid that I might lose my job if all of this
Oh,
changes. But
oh,
thanks to you, I feel like I found a new job within my job. And
yeah.
that was such an
Yes.
honor to hear that they had that sense of belonging, even
Yes.
though we were from different generations and apartments and whatever. That just communication once again, and this helps to overcome it.
And it's also about meeting people where they are, right?
Yes,
You can
absolutely.
be so aware that you're not all at the same level, same understanding, and having that empathy as to, seeing things from their perspective as well. So, can you share an example of a collaborative strategy that you implemented that created value for both business and society, emphasizing on the role of diversity?
Yeah, I would love to go back to a project I did in my volunteer work also, because I do believe that whatever defines me is not just my 9 to 5. The spirit I have, the values I have transcend to all areas of my life. And
Mhm.
in like 2015, we had that like crisis all around the world where also many immigrants would kind of look for a new home. There were also like hundreds of thousands of people coming to Germany, and we didn't really know how to handle it, what to do. And it was a different culture, different language, and a
Yes.
very intense situation short time.
Mm.
And I had met many people in my city due to like maybe jobs or other things, and I was like, there's so many opportunities we could connect. So I just reached out to them. I said, you know, that we have that situation, and you have a location, and you have that, and you have that. Why don't we put it all together? And we build
Yes.
up local partnerships, and sometimes we search for whatever we need far away. I would really advocate also for looking local partners, for the people in your neighborhood, for the ones you maybe kind of met in school at some point or whatever. It's not always crazy far away, and all these people were like so willing to create an impact in our local city that it
Yes.
became a huge project, that everyone within the business gave their resources into it, and also had the return, you know, on employer branding, recruiting, whatever. You can always monetize that kind of branding, and was
Right.
great marketing for sure. But I really did love that on a local level everyone was just so willing to give once
Yeah.
they saw there's a bigger picture behind it.
Okay. Wow. That's just amazing. Collaboration is the key.
Absolutely.
So, as a TEDx speaker, what key message did you share about diversity, leadership, or social impact that you believe is critical for today's leaders?
It's a very interesting question, and thank you for going back to the TED Talk. It's been an inspiring journey for me, and I had really struggled to find a message in the first place, because I did really put a lot of pressure on me to kind of deliver a TED Talk that is like so impactful. And at the end, I screwed of the things I wrote, and I said I would just tell my story. And this is what worked out so greatly at the end, because I told people what I was going through, and that as leaders, as human beings in general, we do need to unlearn to learn. And this was the key message I wanted to give to everyone, that throughout our lives there are many limiting beliefs we do learn, many prejudices we are faced with,
Mm.
and many other things that do not serve us anything. And as much as we do update our phones from time to time, or any other device we have in our life, we do have to update our own heart and software too. So we do have to make sure that the belief systems we have within ourselves are not limiting but empowering. But
Yeah.
this takes active work. So unlearning to learn actually would be my key message for the future, with so many things going on at the same time.
Oh, wow. That is awesome. And what has doing that TED Talk done for your life, for your speaking career? The TED platform is very, very powerful in transforming a person's life. What have you found so far as a reaction to your talk?
It's very interesting. It was kind of twofold. The people that listened to it also reached out to me, and I was able to have like amazing conversations with beautiful souls. And they said it was really healing, which I highly appreciated to have such an effect on them. Because I felt the same when I did listen to many other TED Talks, and that I was healing myself, that I was growing, that I was learning. And it's such a like honor to be part of such a circle. And then
Yeah.
on the other side, it's very interesting how much trust I got from the people because I was on that red dot. And how TED really kind of built up that community of people that are like willing to step up for one another. I got like opportunities to speak on other stages, opportunities where I could connect with others, business cases and everything, where I felt like, wow, it's crazy. once you have that visibility and people really do believe in your authenticity, in your message,
Yeah,
they really want to give you a hand. And that also gave me the feeling of I'm not alone once again in my life, which I really appreciated. So shoot out to Ted.
I love it. So how
How
has
was
your
it for you, if I may ask you? Because your TED Talk is beautiful as well. I loved it.
Thank you. So I have now done 3 TED Talks, and they keep inviting me back. I'm speaking about Ubuntu from different perspectives. What I love about the TED platform is it gives you global visibility and credibility, like you said. It's an amazing brand for any speaker. Um, it completely transmuted my speaking career into something I had never imagined was possible. In the last 22 years, I've been to 56 countries as a keynote speaker at conferences and events. It literally turned into a career.
That's so amazing. I'm really happy for that because it somehow also led to this situation where we talk to one another.
Exactly. So, how has your experience as a G20 YEA delegate influenced your views on diversity and inclusion in global business environments?
G20 is a really interesting setting. So the conference I attended also was one where we had like literally people from all continents and so many different countries. And they were all there to find solutions together, which I really appreciated once again. And we also had a moment where I was on stage and we would talk about female empowerment.
Mhm.
And did speak about the importance of not just talking about diversity itself, but also about inclusion and how important it is. Also, to not forget that male people are also part of this journey. And it was really interesting to see how whatever I tried to express got translated into different messages amongst the different ideas, and how it all transcended into at the end one like conference protocol where we all agreed on certain like key pillars. And
Yes.
I would always encourage everyone to attend conferences or events in general where you have such a group of ambitious, interested people that really do believe that we can make a change.
Yes.
And it was such an honor to be part of it because I did learn that Germany is not better off than anyone, but also we are not worse off than anyone. We're just trying as hard as anyone else. And there's a lot we can learn from whatever the other countries did. We maybe even didn't think of.
I love it. So, how do you leverage diverse perspectives within your team to foster innovation and strategic growth?
So I really love the idea to have KPIs for everything,
Yeah.
and I think every company has a different set of KPIs, how they measure their success, their sales, their marketing efforts, and I think you can find smart ways to kind of have different versions of measuring performance and numbers to
Yeah.
find ways how you can actually also convince the board and everyone else with budgets in the company to invest in this projects further. And I would always, kind of benchmark also once we had a diverse team how it performed and what was actually the key difference, and benchmark it based on like previous projects or other ones where we didn't have such diverse teams. And we could see a clear picture that once we had the opportunity not just to have a diverse set of people, but also gave them the space to be diverse and speak up their own truths, we outperformed each time. And I would say that having the right KPIs does help a lot to convince everyone that this is the way to go. And it did help me a lot in my leadership also, whenever other people might kind of when they were resistant to change once again, to give them at least the numbers to say, okay, if you don't believe in the emotions of this, at least believe in the numbers in euros.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. It's all about the numbers, though, at the end of the day,
It
right?
is, it is.
So, what approaches do you take to ensure your business strategies are both collaborative and inclusive, particularly in engaging with diverse stakeholders?
This ain't easy at all, to be honest. It is a constant challenge. And I feel like with stakeholders, whenever you feel like you got a hand on it and you know how to tackle it, something is changing and then you have to adjust all the time. And it
Yes.
does take a lot of like your soft skills to make sure that you can adjust it to that more over and over and over again. So
Yeah.
I really do believe that with stakeholders you always have to be really careful. You always have to also be honest and communicate well. Whatever we said before holds true also for this part. But
Yes.
especially the idea of adjusting over and over again has been a big challenge for me as well. And sometimes we make it seem really easy in such an ecosystem, how everything comes together and everyone works with one another. But different stakeholders also have different needs and different claims for them. And it is important to make sure that you find a balance. You can never satisfy everyone 100%, but you always have to ensure that everyone is still on the same track.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you've got so many pieces to the puzzle. They all have to kind of fit into the end goal that you're working
Yeah.
towards.
And you can
So,
not leave anyone behind because then the puzzle wouldn't be complete at all. So to have that beautiful picture at the end, you have to ensure that all stakeholders know where we're going. But
yes.
ain't easy. I'm telling you, ain't easy.
So, can you discuss a social impact initiative that you've been involved in that was significantly enhanced by incorporating diverse perspectives?
What I really appreciate is I'm part of a business network called Wirtschaftsunion. And what
Mhm.
we do is like we do connect politics to businesses. And we do have the opportunity to also kind of connect with ministers and also visit the parliament and everything connected to such places where you would have an opportunity to engage in fruitful discussions to make sure that also the politicians know where the entrepreneurs and business people want to go.
Yes.
And I would say this is the one of the greatest investments into the future, that you have one on the one side the politicians, on the other side the business people, and then also any other group, so that and the places where you make sure that they meet on eye level, and that they have a discussion where all parts take it serious. And this was something I really appreciated because I spoke to people in Germany. We have like many different parties. It was all of them basically, and they had different goals and they had different ideas for the future of Germany. And from our perspective, sometimes we were not fast enough, we were not like agile enough, and really wanted to speed up everything as a business perspective. And it was really interesting to see how it isn't enough if we kind of just run all the time, but we do
Yeah.
forget to kind of have the politicians also on our side at the same time, to make sure that they see that this is for the good of Germany and the future. So I would
Yeah.
always encourage everyone to not just stay in their own bubble, also within the business world, but also to expand their view and to talk to people that try to change stuff in different systems.
Right. I like that. That is so important. So, the last question for today's interview is, what future goals do you have for enhancing diversity and inclusion in the realms of leadership, strategy, and social impact within the business sector?
So sometimes I feel like, in such a sense, we overestimate what we can do in short term, but underestimate what we can do in long term. And
Mhm.
I always wanted to have like role models and people that would look like me and act like me and talk like me, but I never had it. And I think my own, like, in a sense that I as a person want to invest something into the movement in inclusion and diversity, is that I do put myself out there. I do
Wow.
enter these rooms, I sit at the table, and isn't easy. People don't listen to me. Sometimes they overtalk, and they don't give me the space, but then I take the space. I always say the table is big enough for all of us, and if you don't give me a chair, I will sit on the table. I don't care. But I will make sure that this perspective gets a space. And I have to say, it really isn't about me. I don't really care if they will remember my name, but they will remember that there was a young woman, especially also with a hijab, who talked about business cases. And I really do not want that we are always in that niche where we can just talk about uh, yeah, diversity itself, but we transcend into another level where we can also talk about all other issues. And I feel like the best I can do is just kind of try to be my own role model, put myself out there, engage with all these people that have prejudices towards me and people like me. And to be really honest, everyone is really appreciative. I never really had a crazy big, like, horrible experience. In a sense, it takes time always to get there, but
Yeah.
once the people got the chance also to tell me honestly what they were afraid of, all of them said, okay, Burcu, I don't really know why I never talked to people like you, and I
Mm.
should do it more often. And this is the greatest gain I have for myself, my community. And if we all do it in such a sense that we put ourselves out there, I think that's the
Yeah.
greatest thing we can scale.
It's interesting because I lived in apartheid South Africa, and a lot of times it's just fear of the unknown
Mm.
makes people hold back. So I lived in a neighborhood that was all white, and nobody talked to us for the 7 years we were there. And then one night, our neighbor had a heart attack, and the neighbors knew that my husband was a doctor at the local hospital. The wife came and knocked on the door begging for help, and my husband went across, helped to stabilize him, resuscitate him. We got an ambulance, and he survived. And that family went throughout the whole neighborhood telling everybody how wonderful we were. But we had been there 7 years and nobody had talked to us.
Oh,
And
that's crazy.
it is fear of the unknown. I think you and I have an advantage in that we have lived in many worlds. We know how
Mm.
to insert ourselves into a white world, into a Muslim world, into whatever world we find ourselves in. We know how to navigate that space. So it is all about just being open to being curious about other people and giving them an opportunity to show up and show you who they are. So I really love your attitude around that, because we can end up having a chip on our shoulders and holding back,
Yes.
yet we can bridge that gap and make it easier for people to understand who we are.
Yes. And again, it took 7 years also. We should not give up too early in such a sense. And just because we have one bad experience, I also encourage everyone to not give up on other people.
Yeah,
Sometimes I'm also the villain in certain stories. Some people might even, say about me that I'm rude, that I'm not nice and whatever. But I'm really happy that not everyone thinks that about me. And the people gave me also the chance to kind of speak up, be brave, be loud. And the only reason why I do believe all of this is really important is that I faced myself that it ain't easy when you are the villain in a certain story. And I want to make sure that the people I meet are not just, judged from one side by me.
yeah, yeah, that is awesome. I love your attitude. Well, thank you so much for coming online and sharing your story with us today. The Diversity Connector is bringing stories from people from all walks of life, sharing our experiences, bridging the gap of knowledge. So we celebrate our diversity and revel in it. So thank you for being a part of the soup that I'm cooking with this podcast.
Thank you so much for creating such a delicious dish. And I really do believe that these stories are the change we need.
They are. And thank you to everybody who's tuned in today. The Diversity Connector is a platform that shines a light on the beauty of diversity. We want to make sure that with each episode, you're meeting somebody who's completely different, who doesn't look like you, And it's through the sharing of our stories that we create understanding. And for those of us who are of color, we also need our stories to breathe. We need for you to hear the stories from our perspective and how things impact us, so that you can be a little bit more sensitive to the experience of being a person of color. So thank you all for tuning in. I'll be back again tomorrow with yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world, and bye for now. And thanks again for the interview.
Bye-bye.
And that's a wrap, everybody, on today's episode of the Diversity Connector podcast. Thank you for tuning in and being part of our vibrant and global conversation. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a tapestry of diverse perspectives. Remember, every story you've heard today is a thread in the larger fabric of our shared humanity. So, as you step back into your world, carry these stories with you and let them inspire you to embrace and celebrate the rich diversity around us. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these inspiring stories with more listeners. Do follow us on social media by looking for the Diversity Connector podcast for more updates. Until then, keep connecting, keep listening, and keep celebrating the beauty of diversity. This is the Diversity Connector podcast signing off. Stay curious, stay open,